This program is brought to you by Tab. Long may we play.
Hello, I'm Caroline Searcy. Welcome to Thoroughbreds Go, promoting this wonderful breed of horse into new homes away from racing. Coming up on this week's show, we hear from popular trainer Kim Waugh, a renowned advocate for the care of all animals, and she has some insightful and informative thoughts on trainer and owner responsibilities for finding the right homes for their ex-racehorses. Hong Kong has strict regulations on all its racehorses being rehomed, so where do they go? We meet Rebecca Brown, who takes Hong Kong gallopers and turns them into elite show horses in New South Wales. And an Inglis Millennium winner features in Arrowfield Studs' Strapper Stories. That's all coming up this week on Thoroughbreds Go. This segment brought to you by Inglis, the Great Southern Weanling and Broodmare Sale, June 9 and 10 in Melbourne. Kim Waugh's Martoom Lodge, named after her 2005 Sydney Cup winner, is a sanctuary for many animals, large and small, from the orphan donkey turned Twitter star bully to dogs and ex-racehorses. Kim also uses the property as a professional spelling and pre-training establishment, and she knows what it takes to look after thoroughbreds in retirement. Renowned as being a real animal lover. It's really apparent, obviously, as a racing trainer, you really need to care for these animals. But, you know, with Bully, who's a, Twitter sensation, and your beautiful dog Bear and your other dogs and the chooks on the front veranda, it really is wonderful, isn't it, to have that love for animals. You know, as I say, you need it to work with these horses.
Definitely. It's been my passion since I was a little girl. Animals, any animal actually. Used to save kittens and all sorts of things, but look, we were so lucky when we bought this property about 8 years ago now, and it's just been heaven sent. Love coming home from work, and even though I have work here as well, we have pre-trainers and spellers and everything, but it's just such a beautiful place and it's so peaceful, and we've got endless room for me to collect all my animals.
Hand from above gets the money, hand from above.
Well, it is great to see some of the retired horses that we know so well from in their racing days, that are horses you've actually bred too. I mean, you do breed some horses, and you've had, a horse like the lovely mare Don't Recall, who's just doing some work with Rihanna in your arena. It's really great to see you're actually fostering generations of thoroughbreds.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I really like to make sure when these horses are finished from racing that they go to a good home. So a lot of times, I'll take them once they're retired and I'll bring them home and I'll just look after them for, sometimes I've got them here 6-7 months, and sometimes longer if they've got an injury, and then we'll retrain them, make sure they go to a good home, so they're going to be looked after and have an interesting life after racing. We've had some really good results with horses that have ended up at the Easter show and winning there, and you know, some beautiful horses that, because thoroughbreds are beautiful animals, they're just magnificent to look at, and when someone looks after them so well after racing, it's very nice.
It makes you feel so good, doesn't it?
It definitely does. I'm so proud of them, and I love following them, and just like you know, even though I'm not training them anymore, I still love to know that they're happy and they're enjoying their life. You know, once they retired, once we had this property, I had enough room to keep a few myself, which I've done that. Valdez, he's my pet. We call him Teddy because he's very cute. So once he retired, he's been here for about 5 years, maybe a bit longer, it goes so fast. But just so quiet, like he gives the little kids riding lessons. That's how quiet he is, you know. People want to say they're this, they're that, but honestly, my little niece gets on him. She's 7 and she has riding lessons on him. The friend of ours, he's got a little boy who's 10, he has riding lessons on him. No one would believe a thoroughbred can give riding lessons, you know, but they can. That's how versatile they are. Holy Rain, I've just retired him. He's going to one of my friends. He'll most probably end up at the Easter show. For sure, he's so good looking. Trumbull, he's just retired this weekend. He's here, and we'll do the same with him. We'll retrain him and make sure he goes to a really good home because he's such a beautiful animal with beautiful temperament. Yeah, he's lovely.
Trumbull first up. Darcy Brahma out of Pride and Passion. 50 metres out. Gothland's going to win it. Gothland first.
How do you talk about this with your owners? So horses that aren't necessarily yours that you've bred, but what do you think should be the responsibility on owners? I mean, we can talk about breeders as well, but specifically in a racing stable, because a lot of them really don't understand what it takes to look after a horse.
No, and a lot of people, once they're finished racing, sad as it is to say, just sort of wipe their hands from him and say, get rid of him, give him away, you know. But it's not that easy. You really have to pick and be careful who you give them to. Thoroughbreds are magnificent and they're so easy to train if you know what you're doing. And Rihanna, who works for me, has retrained a few for me, and she's done a marvellous job, and they've gone to great homes and we keep in contact. But you know, owners should realise that they do sort of, some owners are fantastic and they worry and they make sure that they're going to good homes, and then some other people just want to walk away. And that's fine with me because I always take the responsibility and make sure that horse goes somewhere, whether it ends up with me, which a few have, or goes somewhere else. But it's just very, very important because it's too easy to give a horse away. If you're giving something, people take them, and it doesn't always mean they're going to be in the best place.
There's no value on them.
That's
for those
right.
people.
Yeah, it's really important. I mean, there's no guarantee no matter what you do, but I think if you do your homework and you make sure that person's a good horse person and got experience of looking after them and feeding a thoroughbred. A lot of people, you can throw a pony a biscuit of hay a day and that will make him fat. Thoroughbreds aren't like that. They need hard feed, good hard feed, whether it doesn't have to be oats, but I mean a nice solid feed with goodness in it to keep condition on them. And you'll find some people say, oh, he's just out of work and it's going to take me 12 months to get weight on. That means they don't know what they're doing, because thoroughbreds are not hard to keep weight on. You've only got to have a look at my place. They're in the paddock, they come from racing, they get let down, they'll put on 60, 70 kilos having a spell. So those sort of people worry me, and I wouldn't want them to take one of my horses straight away. It's a red flag, you know, so there's no excuse for not having weight on a thoroughbred.
Yeah, what other red flags are there that you see in some people that sort of take, because the equestrian community, this is what the show's about too, is to really educate about what you need to know about a thoroughbred to give it a good home.
Yeah, well, it's just being a good horse person. You don't have to have a lot of experience with a thoroughbred, but if you have ridden all your life and you know how to feed, and you don't think you can just feed it once a week and live on grass, it's not going to happen. So I talk to people a lot and I question them and ask them a lot of questions they wouldn't even realise it's got a meaning. It's just what I'm doing is trying to guarantee that horse is going to a good place.
There are programs around the world. South Africa is one, and other places looking at them, where there is a sort of a retirement fund put in, you know, where people, when you actually buy into a horse, it might only be, depending on how many owners, a few $100s here or there, or but just to provide, you know, maybe $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 or something for when that horse retires. It's really hard because we have horses that, you know, that are being bought for $1,500 or whatever. But what do you think about, is that something you could see working in Australia?
Look, I think that would be a great idea. I think we have to get really serious about looking after our animals. I mean, I think over the last few years a lot's changed, which is great. You know, Racing New South Wales are checking on horses, but I think it's hard to keep the owner responsible 5 years down the track, or the trainer. We can do our best to place them in a good place, but I think there's ways that you can make it a little bit more responsible for an owner to try and help that person keep it healthy.
And of course there are programs around in Australia. They're different models, aren't they, in different states. What do you think is the ideal model? You know, looking at people, whether they be retraining through a PRA or a regulatory body, or individual retrainers being accredited. What do you think is the best way to encourage people to take on, to retrain these horses?
I think what Racing New South Wales is doing, this big show, I think that's fantastic. But I think would be to spread that $1 million over 12 months. Just, you'd get so much benefit for so many people. And because, you know, the horses are expensive to keep. Transport to the show and just day-to-day feeding, shoeing, veterinary, it's an expense, and times are tough. I just think that would encourage people to get more involved in the retired racehorse, and you just have so much more help for them.
Yeah, and it's interesting in terms of promoting the thoroughbred. That's what you want to do, get them promoted to the equestrian world, that not only can you win great prize money at different shows, but I mean, you describe what you love about them, because they are just the best animal, aren't they?
Oh, they're just fantastic, and they're so intelligent, you know, and they don't forget a thing. Honestly, I just like to keep them all. I'm hopeless, you know, but because they are very willing and very determined. You know, you see how good they end up, good show jumpers, good hacks, whatever you can teach them to do. They're very versatile, very intelligent horses. But, you know, it's just all about desensitising them from what they're used to, and then teach them another way, you know, and then they're just the perfect animal.
Some great food for thought there, and always plenty to learn from a thoroughbred professional such as Kim Waugh. Time for a break on Thoroughbreds Are Go. Coming up, we find out how Hong Kong's ex-racehorses make their way into the Royal Sydney Easter Show Ring. This segment brought to you by Kingstar Farm. Time to Reign's first foals arriving in 2022. Winfried Engelbrecht Breschers, the CEO of the Hong Kong Jockey Club, has long been a passionate advocate for the care of race horses when they are retired. As a result, Hong Kong has some strict regulations owners must abide by when they retire their horses, meaning many of them are sent home to Australia. Rebecca Brown thinks the humanised lifestyle of a Hong Kong racehorse sets them up for a great life as an elite show horse.
Tonight is Helene Charisma, and he's gone on by the favourite here, Helene Charisma, in the winning groove tonight.
It's fantastic to see some of the efforts people are making to retire horses from a jurisdiction such as Hong Kong. I mean, I know they have to, but a lot go above and beyond, a lot of the trainers in particular, to make sure their horses do get back to Australia.
They do, and the cost is massive. It is now around 56,000 Australian to get them out here. So that in itself shows how much they care. I've rehomed now over 800 and there has never been a problem. They are just the most magnificent thoroughbreds, trainable, and I gather it's because of the atmosphere, the unnatural atmosphere, environment that they've lived in. Lucky for us, really, that the owners and the trainers do return them to a homeland. They also go to New Zealand and England. Some of the owners follow them, which is great. The others just are happy. They entrust me to place them in good homes. I'd love to keep them all. But unfortunately, finances, and it's better off that they go one-on-one and start a new career.
So tell us how you come to have them. I mean, you do know a lot of the Hong Kong trainers, obviously, but where did it all begin for you getting these horses back?
John Si's Pa, affectionately called, before he left for Hong Kong, he was a good long-time friend and he trained for me. And then 2 arrived, and then after that, they just kept on arriving. John never tells me when they're coming. It's a bit like Christmas. Because I get a phone call from Josh or Phil at New Zealand Bloodstock Air Freight, and they just are here within 2 weeks. They settle in. Some take longer because of going back to a normal environment. It is a bit tough on some of the older ones. They're better off to have a short break to get over the trip, but then start and do something because they are familiar with people not being out in the paddock.
The whole point is that they're going to be looked after well. I mean, if you're sending these horses, a lot of them into show homes, they're going to get that human contact because, of course, they're not out of their boxes really for much of the day in Hong Kong. They're kept in them, 365 days of the year. And
I haven't been there as yet due to COVID, but the new facility over in China still only has 20 paddocks. So the, 1,500, 2,000 thoroughbreds in Hong Kong, there's still only 20 paddocks, there's no yards or anything. They can't all be show horses, they have to be beautiful, they have to be an Elle Macpherson type equine. Some of mine, even after tendons, have gone on to be fantastic eventers and very loved. Some are people's best friends. I've got family just around the corner in Yarramalong Valley that have got 3, and they work with them every day, but they will never compete with them. Their children have grown up. The children want their inheritance, but the horses are getting it. So that makes my job so much easier.
It's Mount Ormel on the far side, Redverden on the near side. Behind those Cloth of Stars in 3rd position, it's Mont Ormel who has the lead and a run to the line.
We're looking at a horse such as Helene Charisma, a Group 1 winner in France, and he was a group performer in Hong Kong too, but had quite a following too. It's really great to see him here in such wonderful show condition. Tell me about his story.
Well, he actually arrived in October 2020. He was quite travel light, but they can't feed them up to travel. And he was quite hairy, thinking he was going into Hong Kong winter. So I left him until July, and then I started on him. And he's only been in light work because I wanted him for newcomer for this year. And he went to Sydney Royal and won his 2 classes and got best gelding, answer gelding, which is virtually champion. So now he's ready to start. He's had 1 ride under saddle and he was very good. So he's ready this winter to get going under saddle.
And I guess they're adapted to the show scene as well from Hong Kong, because it's a busy atmosphere, isn't it? The show scene, they're in these sort of almost temporary sort of boxes. How does he cope with that? Is it almost like returning home for him?
I was amazed at Sydney because he was actually terrified, but he just kept it together. And one of the stewards out in the ring actually said he was so good because his belly was going, he was so nervous, but he just was a showman. And he thought, no, I've got to behave. So, and he only had sort of 20 minutes on the lunge. They were there for experience. They're just going to be so much better for it. And it was worth going, of course, with the wins. And the lovely trophy from Arrowfield stud and the prize money, that helped hugely.
And it's interesting what you call a baby. So in racing, we'd call a 2-year-old a baby or a yearling. But, these can be 8, 9, 10-year-old horses, and certainly 12, 6 and 7 are still babies, yeah?
Still babies in their next discipline. And they are babies until they're seasoned in their next discipline. Horses are no different to us. You could be terrified of spiders. I'm terrified of snakes. The horses have their own phobias as well. Some will never make a show horse. They just can't cope. They can't cope with being rounded up and what they're asked of. They're better off probably going on an eventing course or on a trail ride or something like that, even though showing isn't taxing on a horse, but it can be probably mentally.
How do you work out what horse might be suited to being a show horse?
If it's beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful mover that graces the catwalk type thing. Temperament to work with schooling, you can normally tell how they adapt to being tacked up and being driven and under saddle. And you just take it one step at a time and let them tell you. At the end of the day, it's all about them telling you what they need and what frightens them and what direction they want to go.
Here comes Diamond Bit, who's lashing home as well down the centre.
And your beautiful grey horse, who was second to Helene Charisma in the lead gelding under 16 hands at the Royal Easter Show. Diamond Bit, I love your name, Neil, as in Neil Diamond, very good. But tell me about his story as well. Again, raced, for some time in Hong Kong.
He had a bit of shin soreness and they retired him. I was actually allowed to race him out here. He had a couple of weeks in there and I think he bumped his joint and I said no. I want him home, he's too valuable as a show horse and I love him, so he came home. And then he started his showing career. He got champion at his first time out under saddle. He's a funny horse, he's adorable.
In terms of the ownership from Hong Kong and the former trainers, as you mentioned, I mean, they actually genuinely are interested in what happens with these horses back in Australia, aren't they?
They are. Probably half of the owners still stay in contact, ask how they are and all that. There is also a program in place which is called Respect for Life. They're encouraged that when they import the horse, there is a certain amount of money, like a little bit like a bond on an apartment, that goes into an account for their retirement to help them place them in a home so it's not such a massive amount financially to get them out to a mainland.
And you do have other horses here that have been retired from racing. Delta Deal is one of them. He mightn't have been the best racehorse or set the world on fire, but by the gorgeous Done Deal, and he has that charisma himself. Speaking of charisma, and was trained by Paul Perry out of Passiflora. He's just gorgeous too, and again, he made it to Sydney Royal.
I'm lucky to have him. I am so privileged to have him. He actually spelled with me. Actually, before he got into the stable and yard, for his first night, I actually texted and I said, this one's mine. First horse I'd asked for about 10 years and I was lucky he was slow and no one else got to see him. And he was in my stable, after his second start, he was in my stable the next night and still pinching myself because it is magnificent.
Well, hardly ever swept to the front now and kicked away from one more seater.
And a really interesting horse, and gee, he enjoyed it when he had his rugs off, didn't he? Hadley, by Written Tycoon from Obsessed with Ella, again trained by Clary Connors, but bred by the well-known 2GB broadcaster Ray Hadley, who's really followed racing for a long time. And he and Singo have been great mates for a long time, but really good to see him here kicking his heels up.
Lovely little horse. He's only 15-1. He probably does need a young girl to love him because he's the sweetest boy. And again, lucky that he came here and I fell in love with him. But it is time that he actually does find a home because I think it'll be better for him. Beautiful horse, beautiful mover, and Ray bred him out of his own mare. Then Singo and Ray raced him together, and that's why his show name's Hadley. It was just easy.
And tell me about the Thoroughbreds Spring Fair, which you've done a fabulous job organising. Another great option for people that want to compete with thoroughbreds. And the next one is coming up in November 2022.
Our fourth year. Our third year we had 857 class entries. Again, it's not just for the professionals, and we want the backyard kind of one-off pleasure horses to be able to go and compete and win rugs. We've had some fantastic sponsors on board from the very first Thoroughbred Spring Fair. Inglis, Racing New South Wales, too many to actually mention right now, but we always need more. We need to give back to the rehomers, no matter what level, because we really want to get it out there. Rehome a thoroughbred, love it. You've got somewhere to go at whatever level you're at.
It's really great seeing horses coming from such a structured racing environment as Hong Kong and repurposed into elite show horses. Coming up after the break on Thoroughbreds Are Go, an Inglis Millennium winner in Arrowfield Studs Strapper Stories.
Andrew, tell us why Prime Star's been your favourite horse to look after.
Probably his cheekiness. He's very quirky, but can also be very loving at the same time. and you know, there's always one of them in the stable that no one really wants to do anything with, and he was probably one of those. And then all of a sudden, you know, he showed us what he could do, and yeah, our bond is inseparable, as you can see. In his late 3-year-old campaign, I spoke to one of the owners, just, you know, passing comment, and said, oh, it'd be lovely to, you know, have the privilege of looking after him when he was to retire. But unfortunately, his retirement came a little bit early, some 9 weeks ago, and if it wasn't for Richard Friedman getting the ball rolling, you know, I wouldn't be here today with Prime Star. So I'm forever grateful for Richard, and also the China Racing Club and the rest of the owners who have, you know, now given me a childhood dream, really, to look after, you know, and take the care of, you know, someone that means the world to me. Life after racing, at the moment, looks pretty chilled. He's, you know, up here at the Oaks where he's just chilling around in the paddock, and eventually my sister and I were going to use him as a therapy horse. She's a psychologist back in Adelaide, so he'll eventually make the travel down to Adelaide, and we'll use him for mental health patients in their therapy. So his calm nature and I think his cheekiness, you know, will make him, you know, really good for to put something back to those people who are in need. Seeing them change in their attitude from being highly strung, competitive animals, you know, from race day when they're in the stable to when, you know, they're eventually sort of let to sort of lay themselves back and, you know, just be normal everyday horses and, you know, just enjoy life, which, you know, everyone should get a second chance, and he's definitely getting a second chance here with me.
So great seeing Prime Star, just a young retiree, but with big plans for the future. That's it for this episode of Thoroughbreds Go. Join me again next week as we look at 2 young equestrian riders who've taken their love of thoroughbreds into full-time work with champion Sydney trainer Chris Waller. That and much more next week. I'm Caroline Searcy. I look forward to seeing you then.
This program is brought to you by Tab. Long may we play.